Age verification on digital devices has been moving at an alarming rate. It started with age check gates being added to central software repositories like the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store in order for people to download software. That obviously affects most people using smartphones, but there were still ways around it. At least on Android, you could still load apps from other sources, at least for now, without going through too much of a headache. But then the age checks started making their way into the operating system layer. Windows, Android, and even popular Linux software projects started making plans for age attestation to comply with the new laws. But hey, if you really value your freedom, you could seek out one of the more obscure distros that refuses to add age attestation into the OS. Sure, it may be harder for you to set up because almost every Linux tutorial assumes that you're using systemd to manage your daemons, and even Linux's most popular init system now has the groundwork for age attestation baked right into it. So yeah, that's another challenge that you'd have to face with learning Artix Linux or getting into the world of BSDs, but you know what they say, freedom just isn't free. However, the cost of digital freedom may soon see a price hike that makes RAM look cheap in comparison. And that brings us to the European Digital Identity Project. If we look at the official EU page for this digital identity project, it's presented as a personal digital wallet. We've got all these benefits listed, like easier access to services, stronger cybersecurity, fraud protection, and lower administration cost. Having a digital version of your ID almost seems like a good idea until you peel back the facade and the flat corporate-esque artwork and have a look at the cyberpunk dystopia that is sitting right beneath it. We have a GitHub repository for the European Digital Identity Project where we can actually peek into the planned implementation of this. One of the more concerning parts is the age verification solution for Europeans because your date of birth is a major data point of your ID. If we look at the technical specifications, we can see that the age verification solution is defined as a mix of software, hardware, services, settings, and configurations. This is similar to the age check laws we've seen before, but the hardware requirement adds another hurdle that could completely kill the open source device economy in Europe. The hardware requirement means that your proof of age isn't meant to exist as a normal file that you can copy from one phone to another. The cryptographic key tied to this proof is meant to live inside of a protected part of the device. On an iPhone, that protected area may be the secure enclave. On Android, it may be the trusted execution environment, or TEE, and on some phones it may be Strongbox, which uses a separate secure element for those cryptographic keys. The specification says that the age verification app must use the device's native cryptographic hardware when it's available. Before showing a proof, it must also authenticate the user with something like a PIN, password, pattern, or biometric check. So in plain English, the private key gets locked inside of a small safe that's built into your phone. The app can ask the safe to sign something, but the private key itself isn't supposed to come out ever. Even if someone steals the app's files, they should not be able to move that key onto another phone and then start pretending to be you. The EU Android implementation is designed to use hardware-backed keys rather than falling back to ordinary software storage. Now, I'm pretty sure the reason the EU is using this hardware-based key store approach is because if an age credential was just a normal file on your phone, then one adult could copy it and then hand it out to thousands of people online. It would become the digital version of passing the same fake ID around an entire high school. Hardware-backed keys make that much harder because the phone can use the private key without letting the app actually extract it for distribution. So obviously, we have the same issue of increased state surveillance that all implementations across the world of age attestation carry with them, but the reliance on these specific hardware-based key stores will have a significant impact on multiple things. Firstly, the emerging Linux phone market in Europe. So a while back, I made a video about the Jollaphone, which, as far as I'm aware, is the first Linux phone to ship with what I would consider to be modern hardware. You can watch the video if you want to deep dive into the technical specs of the device, but just from looking at the screen of this phone, you can see that it has that bezel-less design and multiple high megapixel cameras like every other modern flagship device. The Jollaphone brought Linux via Sailfish OS to modern phone hardware, but because it can't present itself as an unmodified Android or Apple device containing the secure chips to generate those keys for age attestation, it could very well end up being effectively outlawed, which is a damn shame considering that this phone is such a big breakthrough in the mobile Linux world. But the issue goes deeper than just Linux phones. As I've explained time and time again, the easiest privacy phone setup is to simply get yourself a Google Pixel phone and install Graphene OS onto it. This essentially gives you a hardened Android setup that is so good at thwarting state surveillance and data extraction attempts that people in Australia were able to run a profitable business selling pre-flashed Graphene OS phones to criminals at triple the MSRP of a normal Pixel device. The unlicensed street-based pharmaceutical distributors that bought these phones didn't mind paying $2,000 for them because, well, that's probably a lot less than they end up paying for bail, and depending on how you structure your smartphone modification company, knowing how to flash Graphene OS and disable the selfie camera on a Pixel phone could be a great business for a tech-savvy person. I mean, not exactly, because the VIP phone guys got arrested, but maybe if they framed the target users of their phones as privacy advocates instead of criminals, things would have gone differently. I don't know enough about Australian law to say for sure, but getting back to the main point of this video, the age attestation checks are not going to work with Graphene OS or any other custom ROM for that matter, because the EU app calls on the Google Play Integrity API to ask, is this a genuine, unmodified, Google-certified Android device? And the moment you unlock the bootloader, install a custom ROM, or even root your phone, that check would fail. So the hardware-based age attestation doesn't just affect Linux phone users or privacy enthusiasts, but anyone who makes any modification to any device that causes it to no longer pass with the Google Play Integrity API or Apple's equivalent checks on their devices. These API checks are one of the most sinister ways to effectively ban non-compliant devices. It's much easier than just outright outlawing non-compliant devices and then sending police to the door of Linux phone or Graphene OS users, because the people with these phones will just simply not be able to access the online services that comply with the EU's age check laws. So rather than the free and open source devices going out in a blaze of glory with their users resisting a hostile government banning them, the people behind these EU age check requirements are hoping that these devices just fizzle out and become more obscure due to their users not being able to access any mainstream online services with them. The hardware requirement also brings the support of older devices into question. So older hardware, especially non-flagship devices, don't always have these secure enclaves and trusted execution environments that the EU's verification app will depend on, which will effectively soft brick those phones in the same way as Linux phones and Graphene OS phones, even though their users are using them right now perfectly fine. I mean, in some cases, even the banking apps still work on these phones, but they're effectively soft bricked because they're not going to be able to communicate with the age check APIs just like the other devices I mentioned. So not only does the current implementation of this digital ID re-cement the EU's dependence on American tech that so many countries have been working so hard to get out of, but it will likely force a lot of people to go out and buy a new phone from an American tech company that they don't need just in order to comply with the digital ID app. These are serious problems that need to be addressed, but as this person with the memory address username laid out, the project has pretty much coded itself into a corner, and it's unlikely that anyone associated with the project will actually address the fact that they're bringing a brave new world to Europe. So yeah, I guess the European Linux desktop and phone was a pretty cool project while it lasted. But without a serious change to this project, or maybe just dropping the idea altogether, I don't see how Europe is going to be able to continue to be on the forefront of the FOSS ecosystem. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it to hack the algorithm, and check out my online store, based.win, where you can buy my awesome merch or accessories for your phone or laptop. 10% store-wide discount when you pay with Monero XMR at checkout. Have a great rest of your day.